Hi, welcome. I am Susan Maud Buchser-Lochocki, a presidential candidate from 2020, 2024, and eventually 2028. Now, I have a lawsuit pending with the Supreme Court exactly on civil rights violations of election and voter suppression and fraud. So I'm waiting to hear on that. But until then, I am still being very active and doing things, but I have not conceded the election because it is fraudulent. So Supreme Court, of course, do your thing. But secondly, yesterday was the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the USA here. And it's a day of, I think, more reflection and deep concentration on whether things are moving in the right or wrong direction. And this holiday was, it's a federal holiday, and it was established in 1986. And that's actually a long time. So I was at an event where Senator Schumer from New York said that he was involved with voting on it in 86. And now we're in 26. That's a long time to be in government. But that's a whole nother thing. So in 91 of last century, this organization called NAN, or National Action Network is actually the name, was started by a Reverend Al Sharpton to continue the celebration of taking action, civil rights, and the dream of, living together equal opportunity. And is it working? So I guess this is going to be called my state of the dream, because that's actually what he said at the event yesterday. Was he asked all these politicians, especially New York politicians and a few New Jersey ones, to come and speak to the public there. It was in Harlem, at their place of gathering. And he asked them all to give their opinion and their input on the state of the dream and what policies they have implemented or are bringing to implement the dream of equality and civil rights and all of these things. And I mean, as you know, I have declared and proven that there are actual election fraud going on. And I'm not the only one. Trump has also shown it, and probably many others. And so, our civil rights are being violated. And it could be that they are even being violated on a racial basis or on a gender basis. The problem is we've got so many hands in the pie now, it's hard to tell. And we've got so many ways to vote in each state that it's hard to tell, because we have these things called computers involved, and that can have software that can just change everything. So I'm sure that you yourself have a story of a vote not being counted, or somebody voting for somebody and being registered in multiple places. These things are all very real and really happening. So I guess I wanted to talk yesterday, and I thought I was going to, but I missed the group I was going to be with. So a shout out to DJ Elf 7 and his group of concerned citizens and political candidates that voices are not always being heard. So I want to give a shout out to him and his team, DJ Elf 7. They are a good group who are bringing awareness to many things, and he's got a large group of people now with him. And my apologies. We were supposed to, or I was supposed to be at his event, but I ended up misunderstanding and being at the actual event with the TV and stuff. The National Action Network's Public Policy Forum, and he was with the ones protesting it. So it should be interesting to see what they have to say as opposed to what I have to say. But I was in there with the governor and the new mayor of New York and some senators and also legislatures, everybody, down the line. So there were quite a few speakers. But I don't know if any of them really answered the question that Al Sharpton posed, which was the state of the dream. And sadly, it is working. The dream is working. The problem is that the bar has been lowered rather than raised. So I don't think that was Martin Luther King's Jr.'s idea, was to lower the bar. I think his idea was to keep it there and bring everybody up to it. And this is not what has happened over the years. So I was there sitting next to a man who had lived in New York City for 45 years. And he said that it's gotten worse. And right now I'm living in West Virginia, where there are lots of people who are unemployed, who are having housing problems, and they can't even, there's no subway in West Virginia, so they can't even get to a job. So poverty has become the new line. And living with unacceptable conditions is the new line of where equality is. So this is unacceptable to me. And I heard next to nothing from these big names. So Hochul, Mamdani, Gilbrandi, and Schumer, and all the rest, they have no interest in that. They're in office, they want to stay in office, they're going to give a lot of lip service, but they're not going to give a lot of, they don't care. They just don't care. You're just a citizen. You're not a big lobby. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white, truthfully. They don't care. So they're doing the maximum of looking busy, with the minimal amount of change. This is what we're seeing, not only in New York, but all over. All the Democrats and Republicans, because they're working together, they're trying to pretend like there's a difference. They're trying to pretend like they're doing something, and they're not. And this was the hardest thing that I saw yesterday, was all these people, one right after the other, talking so proudly about the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and his legacy. But they missed the entire point, which is risking things, doing the hard work, bringing real change. And this is what we're not seeing. So Al Sharpton also said he wants results, not rhetoric. Well, rhetoric was all we mostly got yesterday. So I think it was, well, I can't remember anymore. Somebody was talking about the unemployment levels, but they weren't bringing any real ideas for change. So apprenticeships, 100% employment is what we need. We need people at all ages being trained to do something, because we got a big problem, folks. We got robots coming. And with robots, we're all unemployed. Now, when I was young and living in New York City right after graduating from Parsons School of Design, the new school for social research, a year later they added computers into the curriculum. So I was the last class graduating without them. So I was a dinosaur as soon as I graduated. I was worthless. I had to go take computer classes after spending all that money on a college degree. So this is not new that electronics are replacing us. It started back in 1988, and it's just continued. So a lot of artists and graphic artists and illustrators and all sorts, we were put out of business pretty much because we weren't using electronics to do our art. And quickly, things changed. Suddenly, too, I think it was like in 91 or 92, they took artists out of the courtrooms and they put in photographers, and video was possible then. So, of course, people preferred that. It was quicker, and they could get more information, right? So, again, artists were thrown out. But, do you even know that this happened? I mean, so many artists were, lost their businesses during these late 80s, early 90s, and it was insane. But, who cares about artists, right? So that's what happened. We all had to somehow learn to find a new way, or, we were, it was just a tough time. But we're facing that again, folks, on a grander scale with robots and electronics. It's going to be horrible. So it is time to implement apprenticeships. And we need to all learn trades and skills. We need to learn how to, everything from ceramics to glass blowing to making chocolate, to being a baker, to being a butcher, to being a candlestick maker, We need local grocery stores. We don't need these big conglomerates. Yeah. So my speech was actually, I guess I sort of already gave it a little bit. My speech was going to be about the past, the present, and the future of the dream. And I think the biggest thing that we can take from Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is his courage. Because he did have really great dreams and aspirations. And a lot of us do, but we don't act on them. And this is what Martin Luther King is really about, acting on them. So having the courage to act. And this is, I think, the biggest thing we can take away. So I wanted to talk about the fact that there is, sadly, even with all those bills, the 1964 and the 1965 bills that were passed that were supposed to bring equality and all of this, they did. And they did do a good job. We can expect that 90% of the people will not be actively prejudiced or actively hostile towards people that are different from them, whether it's gender differences or ideology differences or color of skin or religious differences. So these things are 90% of the people will be fine with being equal. There is 10% of the population that probably won't be, and they'll never be. So we have to think of this logically like that. This, we are much better off than where we were back in 1960s. On all these levels, for all the different variations of U.S. citizens. Is it perfect? No, because we have that 10% that will make it and keep it imperfect. But we have to stand alert to these people and work with them and hopefully bring them around, but there is a chance that they will never come around. So just be aware of that. With that said, corruption, power, control, these are all very seductive concepts. And I'm going to say 90% of the people can be also normal. But then there's this 10% that are corrupt, that are wanting power, and they'll do anything for it. And this is where a lot of the problems come. So we have voter fraud and manipulation and corruption in the election process. It's just true. This is what we have. And for a long time, people are looking the other way. They're not doing anything about it, especially the ones in office, because that's how they got there. So sadly, we have a lot of people in office who are illegally there. Period. And they know it. I'm going to say the majority know it. There might be one or two that don't know it, but the majority know it. So that's my main thing right now. I mean, I have a whole long list of things that I'm working on, but this is the main one, and stopping it is what I want to do. So I have done, I'm already working for all of us. So, I wrote my very first lawsuit, even though I have dyslexia. And I understand that, apparently in some communities, dyslexia is known as a learning disability. Well, stop thinking of it as a disability and start using it. It's a power thing. It gives you a different way of looking at things, and it's good. So, first, when I discovered this, I took action. I started emailing, I started calling up my governor and my Secretary of State. And I'm like, hey, we can't go on with this election with all this corruption. Because, back in 22, somewhere in August, my Secretary of State in West Virginia announced that West Virginia had over 380,000 wrong names on the voter registration list. And I'm like, that's shocking. And he even said in the same video, that's a quarter of the West Virginia vote. I mean, that changes everything, doesn't it? And if it's in West Virginia, it's in other states. And what we found out in 2024, there were 26 other states that came forward to admit it. There were a lot of states that did not come forward. But the majority, so we were I think it was 26 states came forward. Well, the biggest one was Texas, with over 1 million people on their voter registration list that were wrong. They were either dead, never existed, misspellings, or whatever, but people were voting for them. And that's a problem. So this does exist, it did exist, it still exists, nothing's changed. So that's why I have not conceded the election, because I don't know if Donald Trump is really the president. I don't know if any of our elected officials are really the elected ones. The states have come up with so many different ways to cheat and change the system. When I say states, I really don't mean the individual states, because the states are just states. It's the people running them. And the only people who have ever been in any power in our country have been either, in the last 150 years, have been either a Democrat or a Republican. So it's both of them. They're working together, and they're not letting other parties in. They're not letting other voices in. And so we got a problem. And when I realized all of this, it makes me try harder, because I am not accepting this. Because if it's in the government, then the people think it's okay to do. And that's what the big issue is. We let our government be run by the Democrats and Republicans. We turned it over to them, gave them the keys, and looked the other way. Well, it's time to look forward. It's time to see the problems, and it's time to change them. Because this is not what we want to leave for our children. It's not what I want to leave for my children or your children or anybody's children. It's time to hold the Democrats and Republicans responsible for their actions. So I had a lawsuit, my very first one I ever made, and I did it all by myself as a pro se, even though I have dyslexia. And it got a reaction. It got these states to come forward in 2024 and tell the courts that, yes, they have fake names on their lists. And that's how we found out about Texas, because of my lawsuit. Even though it got rejected eventually, it became the catalyst for all these things. Then we've discovered that with the DMV, when you say you want to register to vote with them, if you're a citizen, you don't get registered. Because I did it twice and I never got registered that way. But if you're a foreigner, then you get registered. And that's how foreign names are getting on there, because computer software. Yeah. So, those are my actions. And I will say that my emails and phone calls did not get returned when this all first was breaking in 2022. But then eventually I did hear back. But I was everywhere. I was emailing, I was calling, and I was commenting on Facebook and X and all these LinkedIn, wherever I could, to the people in power, to my governor and to my Secretary of State. I was leaving comments everywhere. I was telling everybody what is going on. And that helped. So these are the steps that I took, and they worked. So eventually it came around, I had to write a new lawsuit. And I discovered, so from the reaction to the reception of my first lawsuit, I felt like the federal district judge in West Virginia didn't feel comfortable making a ruling on it, and that he wanted it to go to the Supreme Court. And then my problem is I've never done anything with the courts before. So I missed a paper when I tried to appeal it to the Supreme Court, to the U.S. Supreme Court. And by doing that, it got rejected completely. But I knew eventually I would write a new one. And I discovered with the U.S. Supreme Court, there's something called a Rule 22. And so I wrote up one of those. That's the emergency one when you want to stop like somebody from being executed through the death penalty or something, that they always show in the movies. Well, I'm going to say it doesn't work as fast as they make it seem in the movies. So don't ever use this if you're really in a hurry. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it's probably still the best one to use, but it's not going to work the way they show it in the movies. But because I'm still waiting, and I filed this back in February 2024 with this U.S. Supreme Court. But they still have my lawsuit, and what I did was I reduced my ideas to one, which is the registering to vote list. That's unconstitutional. Nothing should come between a U.S. citizen and their rights, and our right is not to register to vote. Our right is to vote and have it counted. So it's also not just to vote, but it's to have it counted as well. That's our right. And this is where the problem is. So we have the Democrats and Republicans using this fake list that has no checks and balances on it, and they're saying, well, if you're not registered to vote, you don't want to vote. Now, they want everybody to sign up on that because what they need is something called a quorum. If enough people show up to vote, then the vote is valid. If not enough people show up to vote, then you have to vote again. So our rights as citizens is to vote and have it counted. Now, many of our laws and many of our amendments are about not having these other obstacles, like having a religious test or having any test or paying money to be able to vote. So, and then being of a certain color or a certain gender. These things were all sort of requirements once, supposedly. I mean, they were all unconstitutional. And we now have things written down that say that that's true. But the Democrats and Republicans have found a new way. And the real problem is that not enough citizens are voting. Well, the other part of all of this, too, is that somewhere along the line, the government stopped, the local county clerk's office stopped informing us of what we're voting on. Because, too, oftentimes we go in to vote, and suddenly we have to vote on whether we want to spend money on a bridge, or whether we want to build a community center, or a new tax is going to be added to property. And nobody told us about it. So what do you do when you're confronted with new information that you have no idea what it is? Some people say yes, some people say no, some people don't do anything, and then anybody can come in and change it. So we got so many multiple problems right now, but the real thing is that the states are supposed to be in charge of the elections, which means the Democrats and Republicans are in charge of the elections. Not per se them. I mean, it could be, the camel and the rabbit parties too. But the real thing is that the state is in charge of tallying the elections. They're not per se in charge of all the elections, and we need to make a difference there. So I've put out different ideas about ways of voting where we have direct voting from the citizens, where citizens would get on the same day a packet delivered to your house, the one residence that you have declared by the Social Security and IRS department. That's where you vote. Because we got a lot of rich people who have like 10 houses in 10 different states. So they could, in theory, vote in 10 different places. And they could vote 10 times for president. So this is what we also need to stop. So we need one main residence, and that's where you vote. Locally, statewide, and for federal things. Then 2 to 3 times a year, you'll get a packet delivered to your home that will have the information in it that you need to make an educated vote. And you have time then before the end of voting time, you have time to take a look through it and do some research and decide for yourself if you think that's good or not. Because this then puts the power back into the hands of the people. Because right now we got it in the hands of the lobbyists. And the people we say are representatives that aren't representing us. So we're taking out the middlemen and going directly to the people, which is how it should have been from the beginning. Lobbyists are not citizens. They're organizations, sometimes for business. So we will vote directly. The concept is you have it for about a month to look over. Then you have a month to bring it back to your town hall or your courthouse, depending on the place and how it's set up. A decision will be made eventually at the finalizing of this concept. But you go in, you show your ID, and you take your ballots and you put them into a box, and then on election day they get open and they get counted. And now this is where I need you to be involved. I need citizens, U.S. citizens with integrity, helping out to count, helping out to make sure that the cheating doesn't happen. We will get rid of all computers and software because that's where a lot of the hidden problems are. And then we should have real elections. And it's not difficult. Everybody can get out one time a month and get to their town hall or their courthouse and drop this off with an ID. It's not terribly difficult. You can do it at your leisure. It can also be on a weekend. We'll see how the things go and how it could work, but it should be possible. And you do your voting at home, in the privacy of your own home. Because I find it's also very stressful to go in to vote and there's like all this activity around and there's, it's just very stressful. And every voting system is different, so, it's not good. So you vote at home, and you leisurely bring it in. You have up until the last day and the last hour to bring it in. I don't suggest you wait until the last hour. We'll have to see. We might have to make it a hard stop, because we don't want a 2-mile long line. It would be nice to actually count the votes and have them counted. It should be possible in every county that they have the votes tallied by midnight. It should be possible. I don't know. So, anyways, let's see how that concept might work, or think about it. And if you're in office and you're watching this and you can bring this about, then please do. Don't wait for me. Do it. Let's get it done. So I've voted this way in Switzerland. Other countries are voting differently than we do in the USA, and it makes more sense. You don't spend time voting at a voting center. You vote at home, you bring your results in, you put them into the box after showing who you are, and done, finished, end of story. You are a U.S. citizen. You have the right to vote where your one main residence is. And that's how it is. So, my ask is I want you to help out. Get out and be one of the counters. We need people with integrity counting votes. And then we can really maybe have Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream be a reality. When all votes get counted. All. Because the great thing is that looking at sheets of paper that say yes or no or have somebody's name on it, it's hard to know if that person is a male, female, black or white, Christian or Muslim, or atheist. You can't tell. So the vote just gets counted, doesn't it? Ta-da. Okay, so I heard no real policy concepts. And nobody seems to be thinking about AI and the amount of people who will be unemployed. So we need to start implementing this now so that we're prepared in 5 years when suddenly we have high unemployment. We need to start teaching people to run small businesses and get them up and running. So, do you want to be a car mechanic? Then be a car mechanic. Let's set you up. Do you want to be a person who makes chocolate? Then let's do that. Do you like being a farmer? Then let's have you grow some things. It's time to move more local. We don't need these big farms out in the Midwest. We need local grown things, local things, so that we don't have the big trucks driving all over the place, getting into big accidents. And it's fresher, healthier. So, I didn't hear, these politicians yesterday didn't bring any concept of change. Certainly not. And they were seemingly not so happy on the federal government being, sort of working on crime, working on getting illegal people out of the United States. What I can say about that is that illegal people came in illegally, or they stayed in the country longer than they should. So I do not have a problem with helping them to undo their unlawful behavior. And they should be returned to whatever country they crossed the border into our country from. So whether that's Mexico or Canada, or by boat, they could be from many places. But yeah, they should go back there and fill out the paperwork and come back in properly. And that way then they're legal immigration rather than illegal immigration. There's absolutely nothing wrong with immigration. I do think that we have a low amount of it, but I think we currently, at the moment, for the next couple of years, we need to work on ourselves and our country, because we're going to go through some hard times right now. But then after that, I have no problem increasing the amount of people coming in, but legally. It's not hard to be legal. It's actually much harder to be illegal. So you may as well just be legal. And there are 50 U.S. states, and they fall under the category of the United States of America. And they fall under the category of the federal government. So, yeah. It is very unfortunate what happened to Renee Good. I don't know yet if all the information has been given to us, the public. Just remember there are some investigations going on behind the scenes for many things. And so like the Jeffrey Epstein files also has a lot of investigations going on. That's why there's so much redaction in there. So I don't want to put one thing with the other, but apparently something's going on in Minnesota. And it is a bordering state to Canada. So sometimes we just have to wait and trust. And I will say that Donald Trump is, or I should say President Trump is doing a transparency. You know, we are very much aware of all his moves all the time. And they tell us as much as they can without jeopardizing national security. So I think we need to keep that in mind when the media tries to stir up things, tries to get hate between us. We need to remember that. Okay, so I don't think I have much more to say. I was disappointed in the talks yesterday. How is the dream doing? It's doing okay. I mean, we are living together. There will always be that 10%. The bar needs to be raised higher, not lower, and then we'll be really doing okay. So please get involved with your elections in your town and county and state and everywhere you can, and have the courage to do what I did and to do what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. He had the courage to stand up and fight. Not physically fight, but verbally, and inspire. He inspired me. And I hope he inspires you too. So I think I covered most things. I will say The other thing that I did, there was somebody at the end of yesterday's talks who stated that if you're a woman of color and you're giving birth, that you have 3 times the likelihood of dying during childbirth in the USA than a non-woman of color. So that means black, brown, and all the variations. So I recommended to this man I was talking with there, I said, tell everybody you can to take being an organ donor off your driver's license, off your IDs, off your public information anywhere. Take it off. Because a pregnant mother has been spending the last 9 months eating really healthy. Maybe even taking vitamins. And there's a baby. So, yeah, organ donating, it's a big business. And if you go around advertising everywhere that you're an organ donor, it's not healthy. Some things need to be kept private. So I'm telling you, also the public, be careful. The medical industrial complex also needs to be worked on. Ethics is missing there. Integrity is missing there. So, yeah. So, we got some issues to work on, folks. Thank you for listening to all of this. I know it kind of goes on, but I gave you some main points too. So, this is my take from yesterday's, what is it? NAN. Where's my, I'm sorry, I'm new with this. The National Action Network. There we go. National Action Network. And the Public Policy Forum for Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, so I hope you all had a nice day off and could reflect on what you're doing and what you could do and how to make things better for all of us. I hope if you didn't, then take some time maybe this week, and take action. Have courage. All right. Thank you for stopping by. I wish you a good day wherever you are. If you want to find out more about me, I am here. You can like and subscribe to this channel, or I have a Facebook page, X page, LinkedIn I got to get back into, but anyways, and then I have a website, susan4usa.com, Susan the number 4 USA.com. But on YouTube I have lots of videos, or on Facebook, that's where I'm most active. Okay, so now I'm really going to let you go. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Happy week. Bye for now.